Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. Today on TMC, we have Family Battle Plan with Cameron and Georgia Game.
Thank y'all for having us first and foremost.
Absolutely.
And thank you, the TMC family, for welcoming us in. A little bit about me and Georgia. We have been married for 11 years.
Yes.
We're only 32 years old,
Yeah.
so you do the math. And we're both very passionate about family dynamics, the family itself, God's order and structure in the family, God's purpose for the family, and of course, all that being built off of the marriage itself. We're both Army vets with combat tours under our belts and a lot of leadership experience under us as well. We've done youth ministries and little small groups of family. I guess we don't call them sessions, but we call them like family group get-togethers.
Mm-hmm. Community outreaches, that type of stuff. Yeah, and giving back to the community. We have a daughter, Nevaeh. She's 9. No, she's 10, Lord.
You about to get in trouble.
And then we have Caleb, boss baby. He's 2.
All right. Awesome. Cedric was in the military as well. So tell us which branch of the military you all were in.
Army. I said,
Wow.
That is awesome. Where were you guys stationed?
Fort Hood.
Yeah, and
Really?
All right. Okay.
Where are you guys at now?
Katy, Texas.
Oh, Katy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay.
awesome,
We live
awesome.
in Houston. Mhm.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that.
Neighbors.
Absolutely.
You know, I was in the military and, you know, she was the
I'm a
spouse of the
civilian.
military, but you guys both been military. What was that like?
Wow.
It was different.
It was a challenge, I would say.
It was very different.
Yeah.
So when we first got married, we were only together for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to go and deploy while she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was very different. I didn't even get to see my daughter being born because I
Mhm.
was in Afghanistan.
Wow.
She had actually got off of active duty and did the reserves, but it was still very different. But it worked out because we basically had the same schedule.
Right.
Like we got up at the same time. We were in different companies, but our companies are right next to each other.
Right.
But got up at the same time. We both went and did PT with our company, came back home, showered, and then we would go off our day, come back around the same time. So, I mean, it was different, but it's okay.
How long were you guys in?
I did active for about 3.5 years, and then I transferred over to reserves because I was actually trying to do nursing. And you know, that's why I wanted to get out, do my nursing thing, got my BSN, and then babe, how long
I did 4 years active and 3 National Guard.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 4 years active and I was out.
Oh, right.
I don't blame you, man.
Right.
Tell us one thing you wish you knew before you got married.
I wish I knew how to cook more meals before I got married. Like I have my staples, and then, you know, my husband, he's so patient with me, but I was like, man, we got to eat every day. I got to know how to cook. You know what I mean? So, but he was patient, and I'm much better now, you know?
That's good.
I think for me, the thing that I wish I knew before actually getting married was how to be a emotional support system for a female. Now, I'm the youngest of 6. I have 3 older sisters and 2 older brothers, but it's a little bit different with your siblings than your spouse. You know what I mean? And she just needed different things. And to me, at first, I was like, I don't know what to do for you. Like, what you want me to do? Like, we're in the Army, suck it up, man. Up, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of wish I knew that side of it before going in, but I'm happy how I built to be able to get there now.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I love it. So you were the baby.
Yeah.
Okay. You were the baby. I was a baby as well.
The baby too.
And we actually did a podcast about it. I don't even remember what episode it was, but we was kind of talking about the dynamics between me being the baby and her being the oldest. And I mean, it really affected the marriage. So what was it like with you guys?
Well, for me, even though I'm the youngest, like even my wife, when she first met my family, she was like, "You're like the oldest." I don't know. I wasn't, as a kid, I was very timid, small, skinny, and all that. But I guess like as I got older, went through life, got into the military, I found myself. So it's like, I mean, the only difference I would say, because she is the second oldest, but she's the oldest girl. So she's also the first girl, which means she's daddy's girl.
Right.
Yeah.
Me being the youngest, I was like my mama's boy. Her being her daddy's girl. So it's like we kind of wanted different things from each other,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason why I brought that up, because and I remember when Shante and I first got married, we had no idea. So she was kind of, real bossy, and I was real. I mean, I have to be honest, I was spoiled. I was spoiled. I was a mama's boy. I was spoiled, and in the beginning of our marriage, I mean, not throwing tantrums like on the ground kicking or whatever, but I was throwing man tantrums,
So for me, I don't call them that. I just say I'm kind of particular about things, and I like things a certain way, and it comes off as that type of way. So I can kind of mask the tantrums a little bit.
Or if he was sick, that's when I would see him more. If he's sick or something, then I'm like, oh goodness, come on.
I think we all experienced that one. Yeah. So you guys have been married for 11 years and you're 32. Are you guys the same age?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm in August 31st and he's February 11th.
You guys married young, just like we did. Let's talk about that. What was that like? What was that like?
For me, I'll be honest with you. So I grew up in a house. My mom and dad, they were together forever, but they never got legally married until I was 14 years old. So to be honest with you, I never really seen like what a good marriage was, but I knew what commitment was, not only from my parents, but also being in the military. So being married young in the military, it was different from the standpoint of you just couldn't go, you know what I mean? Because then it's like, you got to check in, see, babe, I'm going to do this, who you going to be with, because the military is a whole different culture at that point in time, So I think it was more or less like most people would look at you and be like, you didn't even get to live life. But the thing that I always tell people is, I want to live life with the one person forever. So therefore, we're going to do this. And I remember one time me and her getting into an argument, I'm just looking like, yo, I didn't get married to get divorced. No, we about to fix this. Like, what's going on? So, I mean, I think it was more or less most people didn't understand because the mental capacity for them to understand wasn't there at our age. But I think we were both just more mature.
Right. I agree with that. For me, I always knew I was going to be married to somebody. And it's interesting because I remember when we were in Iraq, me and him had this blowout. And I'm like, look, you can't take my faith. God's the one that even have you breathing here today, this, that, and the third. And he was like, no, I woke my own self up. There's, basically there's no God who can control my life. And I'm like, how dare you? So from that encounter to see that we're married, I'm like, man, God, you're so interesting and so hilarious at the same time. And seeing it's kind of like, since we've been married, it's like, you have challenges and things like that. But then when you look back at it, you're like, I see why you allowed this to happen in the way you did. Yes, we were young, but like Cam said, the mentality was just different. It's like amongst our friends, we're always like the youngest ones. But they would think, when they hear our ages, they're like, what? What do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That's just how it's been.
So you just said something. So when you said you guys had a blow up in Iraq. So at that time, Cam, you were not a believer?
Oh, no.
How did you work through that?
I'm going to actually let my wife tell that because this is more of her story and how it really came around to be.
I grew up, my dad's actually a reverend. He's a pastor. And I was groomed in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it took me to get away to actually understand the magnitude of my faith in God and really trust in God. And having that deployment in Iraq was a big eye opener for me, because I remember I had this whole epiphany with God one day after I was done with my 12-hour shift or something. And I'm like, God, I'm so tired of these men, this, that, and the third. I'm trying to do right, this, that, and the third. You know, I'm here sacrificing my life. Can you just send the right man? Like, why does it have to be, you know, where the women do everything right and the men do everything wrong? You know, so it's that whole setback or whatever. And I was like, okay, let me just focus on what I'm doing here. Then he brought Cam. Cam and I got married. But there was always something. I know a lot of people are like, don't marry for potential, but for some reason, it seemed like it was more than potential for Cam. I'm like, you have some type of drive, you know, and I'm like, God, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I don't want to divorce this guy. We just got married. We're trying to, you know, beat the stereotypes of being military couples that end up divorced. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know, calling my sister-in-law, his sister, calling his mom, calling my mom, my sister, and talking and praying and crying. And I was just like, you know what, Lord, like, you're going to have to do something. So it's like, it was hard. It was a day-to-day stuff that I'm like, you know, it's not something you can pray away. You literally have to walk it out with God to be like, okay, God, I trust you. I can't change this man, because clearly that's what my mentality was. I can change him because I can have enough faith for the both of us. Yes, but there's some type of, you know, limit to that, you know. So I'm like, all right, God, you know, I'm praying, I'm living it out. You know, I told him, I was like, I didn't get married to look like a single mother going to church and all of that. Like, you know, I was real with him, you know, because I tried to, I guess, have a facade with him. But now I'm like, no, we're married. You're going to have to see the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, and be honest with him. So that's when I know for a fact God had to do that transformation for him.
Yeah. Okay, so the first year of marriage, I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So I would say coming in, we got married in 2010. I was gone most of 2011. Mm-hmm. So coming back from 2012. So probably about 3 years. Yeah. Okay. But I would cut it down to 2.5, because once I got back and I got out the military and, you know, civilian life sets in, my daughter's there, this, that, and the third and stuff. You know, we're still going through our different marital things. I didn't want to go to church, you know, kind of having certain PTSD moments and stuff like that. It was just a lot to deal with. But the thing that I did see was her praying for me, regardless of what it was, you know, continuous prayer. Like, babe, I'm not going to let you sit in that funk. We're getting out the house. Like, go do something. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. You know, this is dumb, X, Y, and Z, you know. But I think when I know that God, like, spoke to me, was like, I just got up one day, cooked breakfast, and I was listening to gospel music, just like, it is what it is. And I'm like, I can't really, at that point in my life, I don't know what happened, but it was almost like I've seen that side of life, and I'm like, let me see what keeps her so happy, even though I'm so awful in my personal opinion, you know. So that's when I started to move closer to it. And even her own father told her, was like, just keep praying for him. One day he's going to be leading you in your own scripture and giving you own foundation of God. And I mean, that's just how it played out.
Wow, that is awesome. And that's why I asked the question, because I'm like, God, I see you guys on Instagram, and I see your page, and everything you do is rooted and grounded in God. And I'm like, we have to tell people, because what you said, Georgia, somebody has to know that for their husband, for some of them, there's more than just potential. You know, some people it's potential, but for some people, you feel that it's something more. And this gives someone hope that they do not have to give up whatever it looks like right now. Yeah. Just keep praying, just keep hoping, just keep believing. You know what you feel. Yeah. You know what you feel in your spirit, and you stay connected to that. And then we see God do something awesome.
I'm saying,
I'm telling you,
it's just amazing, honestly.
Yeah. And I prayed so God to stop making me cry, but I'm like, the more I pray about it, it's like, no,
the joy.
That's it.
That's awesome. That's huge. And I want to, because Cam said something, and when I was in the military, I did not go to church. This is what I said. I told her, I said, you know what? I said, you represent for the family. So she went to church on Sundays by herself, and she would get ready to go to church, and I would lay in the bed like, oh, I'm so tired. And I used to fake sleeping until I heard her walk out the door. Then I would run out the window. I look out the window. Then as soon as she drive off, I go downstairs and watch football. I mean, it was this thing. And I did this for about, I don't know, for me, the whole military.
Yeah,
I did for maybe 3.5, 4 years. So I did that. But here's the thing, and I just heard Cam say this, is through that whole situation, the God I seen in her, it was a point in life when I was like, man, what is it that she have that I don't have? I mean, I dealt with anger. I had a strained relationship with my father. And it was like, man, and I just watched her. She prayed. She was reading all these spiritual books. And, you know, and just watching her and the way she responded to me, I was like, it came to a point in my life, I was like, man, I want that.
Right.
I want that joy. I want that peace. And I never felt the pressure of her making me do it. But I watched her and I decided, I made a choice. I said, you know what? The same thing, Cam. It was like, man, I want what she have.
Right, exactly.
I want what she have. And it blessed my life from that point forward. So I don't want to move on without people. Somebody experiencing something in their life, you have to do that. You have to be an example. You can't be the one coming from church. You going to church, but you coming from church and you cussing them out. What type of example are you setting? You're not representing God well if you're acting a certain way. I mean, you know, that spouse, that significant other, they need to see the God in you. And the God in you is what's going to change them. In their life.
You're getting excited over here. I mean, it is. And the reason why I say that is because, and I know we have couples that may be listening that are on both sides. You know, where someone, the spouse may just be way out there and they like, I don't even know what I got myself into or whatever. But then you have that person that's the same way I was, the same way Georgia was. It's like, I know that there's something special about him. I know it. I see it in other areas. So when you see that, that's way more than potential. Potential is what I believe you can do, but this is what I see you doing somewhere else. You're just not doing it here. And that's the difference that we're speaking to, because you're talking to that spouse, that significant other that says, I see it over here, but it's not in this part yet, as far as a believer or in their walk with God, but I see it everywhere else. And it's a little bit more than potential. And that's important to know. So for that person, that spouse, no, don't give up. Just keep living the life before them. Just keep being an example of what our Father is, and that's love. You know, and let God do the rest. That's all we're supposed to do.
And I think too, especially for men, for women, if you can get your man around other more mature men that can kind of mentor them and guide them, that helps a lot too. Because most men are looking for fellowship, or they're looking for that brotherhood or whatnot. And if you give them the right type of example to follow, it's a done deal.
I'm glad you said that. That is so true. I mean, that explains why you have a lot of young males that not fellowship anything. They get caught, whether it's good or bad, you know, they either get caught up in a small group at church or they get caught up in the games on the street, but they want to have to be associated with something. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so true.
You know, you working with families, you all have family outings and outreach and things like that. And with that in mind, what do you all see is the greatest need as far as the challenges that couples and families face today? What's the area that families and couples that you work with tend to need a little bit more support?
I don't know if this is the greatest need, but it's just what I personally observed, and that's literally a order and structure to follow. Most people don't have an example to look to, and most people are just kind of like, I don't want to say winging it. They have a similar idea or whatnot, but it's not the order and structure in which God had created. So one of the biggest things that I think is people understanding the actual purpose of the family and the purpose of the marriage in order for it to actually come out and be exhibited into the world the way that it's supposed to be. Because just like Pastor was saying, it's not, you can't be saying like, oh, I'm God, and then you out here, you know, having all these infidelity issues and whatnot. You have to understand that your marriage and your family is purpose for the advancement of God. And once you understand those things, it kind of puts more precedence on, oh, I just want to be happy, my family to be rich. You do think about legacy, but you think about it more deeply in a purposeful manner.
What do you guys believe are some components? We're going to say marriage/family. What are some key components to that?
We actually started doing, we're actually writing this book, and it's called The 7 Pillars of the Family. I'll start with the marriage. One of the components that I personally believe in marriage is that communication. Yes. I believe that everybody thinks that. That's also in the family. And when I say communication, I don't just mean verbal, I mean physical communication as well. Because let's be honest, as Christians, we will shy away from the sex topic. Mm-hmm. And understanding that sex is very important in this marriage. And I'm like, if it's not important in your marriage, then you're really not honoring God. Because at the end of the day, God created it. He was there when it's happening. So therefore, you need to embrace the intimacy, not only with your spouse, but with God as well. Yeah. That's one component of it. The other one, I believe, is vision. You got to have the leader. He has to have a vision because everybody needs to know where we're going, what we're doing, and how we're about to do it.
I would say trust, because sometimes people get married and you have certain situations and your actions show that you really don't trust your spouse or you don't trust the family, your family as a whole. And you're just kind of, like Cam was saying earlier, you're just winging it. You're just kind of going with the flow, going with the motion. So when stuff hits the fan, you're ready to, combat one another. And it's like, because you never trusted that person. So now you're here just kind of like in chaos or a chaotic environment. Another one I would say is truly having God be the center of your family or your marriage, your entity. Like that is so big, because we have a lot of people saying they're Christians and they're doing whatever, or they're adding to, taking away from. God doesn't need help with that. He doesn't need us to duplicate anything that he's doing. His standards are his standards, his mandates are his mandates, and that's that. I feel like we put a lot of our opinions on what we think God is saying versus saying, Heavenly Father, kind of help direct us here. We really don't know what we're doing here, whether it's bringing mentors or, seeking life coaching or whatever the case may be. We don't want to take the time to do that because it tends to expose our true selves. And then then it's like you're here wondering, how do we get here?
Right.
Yeah, and I believe that's a big issue. You just said expose your true self. I mean, everything that's going on. I mean, you have social media, you have all these things. Right. I mean, it feeds into that faking type personality. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have marriages. Someone just had an argument, but they go to, the steak restaurant on Saturday, and the only smile they had all day is a smile when they're taking that photo, just for that image. Yes. And it's like, it's becoming so common. We paint the picture really nice, and we get so caught up in that image of looking happy instead of being happy, looking successful instead of being successful, looking like a successful marriage, successful relationships, successful parents instead of being it. And it's really so easy, and it don't take a lot of work. It don't take a lot of work for me to get on right now, and it don't take work to do that. All it takes is just a smile for a few seconds, and we're arguing again. So I want to talk about that, because I think this is because of social media, this is huge, and marriages and relationships is being destroyed. Finance is being destroyed because of social media. I mean, people can't afford stuff. We'll do it and pay their light bill later just to get this nice image on social media. So let's kind of talk about that. The issue with doing the real work and faking like you worked it out.
Oh, wow.
It's literally just what you said. Social media gives you that absolute facade of whatever you want. I tell Georgia all the time, like, I mean, we even have a YouTube channel, but you can genuinely see we're not trying to make it anything that it's not, And you can even look on the camera at times when it's like, hey, I'm not feeling this. And she knows I'm not feeling it. Because what I personally believe is I'm not about to just sit up here. If we just got arguing, like, why are we taking pictures? Like, we got to actually work this out. And the problem comes because most people, I'm going to put it to you like this. This is a lazy generation on all aspects of it. No one wants to put in the work, but everybody wants to profit from it, And I'm just like, when you're in a marriage, that teamwork is everything. So one thing that we said when we first got married was like, I don't care. We're not going to go to bed mad. And this is me, who's not even someone who was even in God at that point in time. So I'm like, You're not about to roll over, think you're going to be mad or go sleep in that other room. We're going to sit here and we're going to talk it out. That's why I say communication is very important, because what social media does, it tells you, and me and her was actually talking about this. I said, if we go based off of what social media say, then we're just living in the slums. We're poor, we're broke because we don't have X, Y, and Z. So people are going based off of social media success versus what God says success is in your marriage, and your family, and everything else.
Right. You know, even being a nurse, sometimes you kind of see everybody, they want to deal with the symptoms, as we would call it, instead of that, the root cause, what's really triggering all of these things. You know, you have people where you look for like 15 seconds, TikTok videos, all of this, and you see them and you start looking at your own life and you're like, oh, well, let me do this, let me do that. Some people, like before I even had I was in it too, where I would buy coffee, and at first I'm like, I don't even drink coffee. Like, why am I doing that? Just to post a picture, like, hey, get this, yeah. So I'm like, you have to assess what you're doing and be careful and be real about it, because especially we have children and our daughter sees what we're doing, so she's thinking, oh, I need to do this, add this filter, polish the image, and it's like, that's not your authentic self, and you have a lot of people who will have issues or start competing with one another with their relationship. Oh, my husband took me here, or he carried me here. And then, oh, my wife, she did this and my wife did that. And it's like, instead of us actually edifying one another, we're here competing. And, basically the devil don't even have to do anything, because we're already, dismantling what God has. Yeah. So it's something that we can't take lightly, and we have to stand on God's foundation of saying, we have to be our authentic selves.
And this is the thing, being your authentic self is like this, even my wife and her sister, they have a podcast. When you put out those type of messages and you're being yourself, and you're like, especially for guys, it's like, I ain't gotta have like the biceps, the six pack and all that type of stuff or whatnot. Or I don't have to be rocking these $2,000 shoes, driving this type of car or whatnot. When we put out authentic content and we're authentically ourselves, in this day and age, you may not get the most views, but I promise you it hits the hardest. It's going to impact people the most. And that's what we have to go for when we're thinking about social media, impact. Some people, they want to be famous and popular and stuff like that. I'm like, let us be influenced. Turn the tide of how things are going. Let us start seeing more TikToks that are actually praising God. Let's see more prayer brought back into schools. And I actually had this idea where we're probably going to do it soon, where we're going to do, I think it's Thankful Thursdays, where it's like, hey, since you want to post pics, post a picture of you and your family doing Bible study, post a picture of you and your family praising worship. You have to get back to certain things that are more positive to the light of what it is, because social media, it can be good or bad, but right now we're dealing with an over amount of it being saturated with just fulfillment of how I personally physically want to feel and things like that.
The difference between maybe, when we got married, when you guys got married, and the issue you're seeing right now to help our Gen Zs.
I think what I'm seeing right now is, I personally I heard it when I was growing up, but I call it living up with the Joneses effect. So you have a lot of celebrities, or they call them influencers, to set the standard for this is what it is. I mean, this happens in the Christian world as well. It is. And it's almost taught that if you don't have this, then you're not doing that. So what we're actually seeing is like, people are like, I need to know how to make X amount of dollars so I can do X, Y, Z with my family, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, you can do all that, but where is the foundation for which your family can go out here and provide monetary things? But where's the provision of security? Where's the provision of children, their identities, And for me, I literally tell people, turn it off. I'm the type of person, if you have my personal number, call me, text me. You ain't got to post something to hit me up on social media in order to get my attention. You have my personal number for a reason. So you're seeing people who are trying to be someone who's out there. We had someone hit us up about how to become a life coach, and is it lucrative? No, we're not entertaining that, because what you want to do is be able to influence someone. You don't want to always be like, well, what's the benefit of it for me? Yeah.
We try to think on legacy, because you can buy your kids the latest shoes or toys or whatever, but that's not what's going to sustain them in the long run. So it's like, being true to who we are. Even today, our daughter was telling us how, some kid said something to her and her response was, honestly, I don't care how you view me. I know how God created me. I know how I am, and that's fine. And her friends saw that and they're like, oh, you could have roasted him. You could have said something. You could have done that, and this is 5th grade. So it's like,
amazing.
Cam and I, we felt really good because we're like, babe, like she's really listening, in what we're saying, like, because we were praying for them and stuff like that. And we're like, God, we really want our children to get it. We don't want to be overbearing, but we don't want to be too lax where they feel like, oh, I can do whatever and still have God as my Lord and Savior. But to hear her that and mom and dad's not there, I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. She's becoming more solid and more, sound in her own faith. So that's what I'm saying for the generation now. All those things are polished. It's not real. It's and the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So for some of these people coming out with all this stuff, oh, you need to have this, you need to have that, girl, take the wrinkles here, do this, do that. It's like, don't, it's okay to make yourself look good. But let's be real, when all that comes off, are you a completely different person to your spouse, or are you the same person, So it's like that meter, that gauge that we should be intentional about.
Right.
You all said earlier that you have a boss baby, and talking about this social media, the internet now, my son didn't get his first iPhone until I think he was about 14 years old. 14 years old. Yeah, well, when we started playing football, we gave him a phone. He was 14 years old. I mean, I know time is changing, but now kids are, they have cell phones at 2-3 years old. I mean, they come out the womb with their own cell phone. So, and what do you see some of the challenges between both of your kids or technology where it's going right now versus years ago?
I think for me, I'm not too much worried about Caleb because he's still young. He just watches Sesame Street and stuff or whatnot. The only challenge with that is because he doesn't have his own devices, he wants to take yours. And the only challenge with that is now we have to give it a set structure and time. But for my daughter, what I see where social media is going, like, we're monitoring, like, hey, what are you watching? What are you doing? What is that? Who is that? No, what are they saying? No, you can't watch that. And most people be like, oh, that's too much. But I think what people fail to realize, we're in a declining culture. And what they're going to try to tell my daughter is you can be whatever you want to be, including changing your gender, being disrespectful to your parents, having your own identity and all that. No, we're here to guide you in those areas so that you're not confused. You're not going to go out here and listen to nobody else. So the challenges that I see with her, although my daughter, she really does know and she understands, like, this is what we have set for you. You can't do this. For other people, it may be a little bit harder because it was never enforced earlier on. But what you can really start to do, I always say, is substitute the time that they would be on social media with your presence in their life. You have to be there for them, and you have to start spending time with them, getting to know who they're talking to, what their friends are saying. And even if you've never met their friends, just be like, hey, I'm gonna take you and your friends out somewhere, just to kind of catch the vibe. You have to be an active and purposeful, involved parent.
I would say, consistency, because sometimes they would try you to see, okay, I know dad and mom told me this yesterday, but let me see if, they're actually following through with what they were saying. Right. And I'm not going to lie, it is tiring sometimes, but that just shows you the level of commitment. Nothing good in life comes easy, but it's worth fighting for. Right. So I'm going to make sure even the commercials you're watching, turn up the volume, let me hear what you're listening to, and keep at it, take it day by day, keep at it.
Absolutely. You guys teach and you talk about something that you call the family battle plan.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit.
One unique thing about us is that, we was in the Army. So, the way that I actually describe the family battle plan or give it a definition, it is the strategic, tactical, and methodology to maintain and sustain a legacy from the family. So that can go from anything from how you manage finances, how you manage attitudes, how you deal with each other. What happens if someone breaks in? What happens if we have a fire? It's literally the practical things in life where some things are variable, but some things is like, no, we're going to have this set. You teach your children how to start a savings. You teach them how to eat right. You teach them how to dress appropriately for certain things. You teach them how to articulate themselves. It's a family battle plan to sustain a legacy through generations.
I love it. I love it. Maybe tell us a little bit about what your family battle plan looks like.
So for us right now, what we're in the phase of grooming, right? Because we have such young kids, but it doesn't matter. So right now, our family battle plan is to make sure that our children know who they are within Christ, but we're also having the family battle plan where we teach them, because our daughter, she's old enough, we're teaching about finances every day. It's like, you have this much in your account. If you spend this is what you're going to get. And the reason why we're doing that is because you don't have to have what people call the come up in order to make it, right? We're teaching her this so that if something does get dropped in her lap, she knows how to manage it well. But we're also in the family battle plan because of where she's at in life, is to understand who she is, because she has friends and they're very influential to her. But for us as the heads of the household, we're in the battle plan of financial restitution. That's where we are. We are getting our savings together, getting our credit back on track or whatnot, from being young and making different mistakes or whatnot.
In addition to that, we actually have a blog post called The Family Meter. So it's like where, throughout the week or whatnot, you have red, green, and yellow. Green meaning like you're good, there's not a lot of issues going on. Yellow is like, it was all right today, but nothing major. Red means like, no, family meeting, some went down or whatnot. So teaching her how to properly and adequately express yourself instead of always holding everything in or feel like, oh, mom and dad are too busy, I'm not going to say anything. And I feel like that's something that's wrong with, the adolescents of today. They don't know how to properly express themselves. It's either seen as weak or you can't handle it or whatever the case may be. And that's fine. That's why you have family, because you need that support system to help you. So doing the family meter, checking in by the end of the week, tallying up what your colors were to see how we can help and how we can enhance one another is what we do. That's part of the plan.
The family battle plan is to protect your child's innocence as well. Because we know there are certain situations where some kids had to grow up faster than what they were supposed to.
Absolutely.
So it's also there to kind of keep it in that area of protecting their innocence as well.
Are you guys going to do a book on this?
The family battle plan, we didn't have a plan to do that. But now that you mentioned it, we'll see.
It can even be a small one.
Then you can do series. You can do series for the marriage, for the child, for finance, and you can kind of for emotion. This thing can be endless. That's what I see.
No, thank you.
Absolutely, I think that'd be great. If someone wanted to connect with you all and what you're doing, where should they go?
Well, they can go ahead to the website, www.inspiredfamlc.com. And there's a section for them to contact us. They can, or the section where you will see blogs, and just click on it and you'll see where we have our post on there. Instagram @InspiredFamLLC. And they can just DM us and let us know, what other concerns are or questions and things like that.
Cam, Georgia, on behalf of the TMC community, we want to thank you all so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. And turn on your notifications so you'll be notified every time we upload a video. If you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. And we want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.